Hi, hello, good afternoon. My name is Juliana. I work at IBM Research in Brazil, and together with my co-authors and colleagues, Fucs and Vinícius Segura, we've been working on an AI assistant, not an assistant, but an AI advisor into the oil and gas industry. So it's industry-specific domain, which is a little different from the work that is being presented here. And I heard very interesting things that I compared to my work, and it will be used in the next steps to our research. So to give you guys some context, I will use the illustration view that is submitted with the paper. So it will give you guys an idea to the context that we've been working for the last 3 years, and why we did this period. We used the Wizard of Oz and so on. So it's a 2-minute video.
In the oil and gas industry, interpreters are key knowledge workers in the process of seismic interpretation. Their tacit knowledge is the starting point for their interpretation. Considering what they know, they perform a lot of different investigations, gather evidence, and process that new knowledge to make a decision. Each interpreter can contribute to an investigation with different inputs, since their work is strongly based on each person's experience and expertise. The oil and gas industry deals with a lot of uncertainty and risks. To minimize it, they look to combine as much knowledge they can by having different people discussing about that decision. Data, people, and knowledge are combined to provide the necessary input for a well-informed decision. Our AI assistant aims to empower interpreters by providing the input they need in a given moment of their interaction. Data in the seismic interpretation context are encompassed by seismic surveys, scientific papers, industry papers, and reports. Books, previous projects reports, or any artifact with formal knowledge about the interpretation context. People can provide the differentiator factor in the interpretation process. They have their expertise and experience, their tacit knowledge, which can be the key input for that instance of the decision-making process. Knowledge is the input from past interpretations. It carries some of people's tacit knowledge registered, already combined with data relevant to the decision context. But how and when should an AI assistant interfere in interpreter tasks? We designed a Wizard of Oz experiment to observe and get users' feedback about some proposed interferences.
So as the video showed, it's a very knowledge-intensive context. We're working on a specific process, which is seismic interpretation. So they basically look into an image and they add different knowledge to that image. They draw on it, they discuss on it, they relate papers, they relate previous knowledge, previous work, previous projects. So to learn more about this knowledge-intensive context, we performed 2 previous studies to this one. We had already executed those studies, and it was both of them were used to understand the work practice as a whole, the people involved, the collaboration process, and everything that could help us understand how the AI assistant could help this process, or could empower this process, or could change this process to a different and bring the differential from the AI technology to that practice. So here we have, we could understand that they used to draw to explain anything they are trying to explain. So they are always with a notebook or a post-it on hand to draw something, to give some example to even to us, but also to their colleagues. So this is a very common practice for them. And this are some examples of their notebooks, their paper notebooks that they had with the images, with those post-its, and any other information they have relevant to this interpretation process that they go through. They take a lot of time on that, so it evolves with time and with interaction with other data sources and people. And also we look to that workplace and also to collaborative source of data like those things on the walls. In the second one, we ask them to present for us cases, real cases. So they present the past projects, and we have 5 cases that people use like cards with concepts from the geology field and for other concepts that we mapped during the previous work study, a field study. And people build those, as we call the case boards, which they were relating terms, relating people, relating data to compose the story about what they were investigating. So from those field studies, we could take some insights of what kind of interferences we could imagine, we could try to see if they were helpful to those users that we are interacting with. So in this we have the idea, the situation that they start in an individual task, in the individual interpretation, then they go to a collaborative one, and they are very sensitive to that private, that individual work. So they need to be sure, as someone can be, to share that knowledge. So they are very sensitive to that. They usually collaborate with more experienced colleagues, so they have the peer reviews, which are more formal gatherings, but they also have informal ones. So if they have a question, they have a hypothesis that they want to check, they collaborate a lot. Previous work that they have done are inputs to their current work, even from them, their experience, or from other projects. So they use the past, what they have learned in the past, to help in the new projects. They use a lot of formal knowledge, papers, reports from the industry, and other kinds of formal knowledge to support their investigation. They do not know every time about what other people have worked on, so they don't know what's their experience, what they have knowledge about, and they also do not know every person's current work. So even though we had some evidence from previous studies, they said no, but we are a small team. We know what everybody's doing. But it's not necessarily true, as we saw on the cases. So it was a very interesting observation that sometimes people that have been working together thought they knew what everybody was doing, so that, oh, you are also working on it. So this kind of relations was done during our interaction with them. So from that insights, we designed the Wizard of Oz experiment. We've had 2 researchers in the room with the user. They interact with one tool that they are using right now, and we had the advisor as another application that was being used by us during the Wizard of Oz to interfere during the tasks, some tasks that they usually do on that software. So we used this, and we also planned the interferences related to those tasks. So we listed 11 interference that we could be used during those that scenario of interactions. We did not use all of them because we give the user some liberty to choose what kind of thing they were going to do, and sometimes we need to use one or another, but we have a set of interference to deal with all the possible ways the user could go during the experiment. And even the 11 interference, we didn't realize when we planned the experiment, but once we executed, we saw that we could categorize those interferences in 3 types, like linked by data, linked by knowledge, and linked by people. So what do we mean by that? Is what is making the connection with other information or knowledge to the user. So we categorized the interference. This was also part of the analysis that we are trying to think and organize even our UX designs, think about these 3 dimensions. And so we collected videos, and the audio of the videos used to combine with the feedback users gave on the interface. And we categorized them as relevant, relevant but, and non-relevant. The relevant but was a very interesting category because they thought it was useful but not exactly for that situation that they were in. So maybe they are very... They usually use other examples. So if I were on that situation, so they have something to say. So it's not completely relevant, maybe not on that context. So our findings, we noticed it is not a very representative in numbers, but we noticed that only the linked by knowledge offered us different feedbacks. So we had the relevant, not relevant, and relevant but. It is an interesting characteristic. Also, you know that the number from the categories are not distributed equally, but it is a very interesting path for us for next research. The task context has a strong linking power, so even when the person do not the user show elements of the task context in that discourse. So they needed a context to define if something is relevant or not. Private and shared knowledge also depends on task. So the user's motivation or even the reason to perform a task can help others to define if it is relevant or not in their case. So our discussion conclusions and what's next. What we observed was a very difficult on these users, which was very different from the previous work that people allowed the AI assistant to fail. But on this case, they did not. So they expected the assistant to be better than them from the start. So this idea of the teaching, the teaching part of interacting with AI system is still very new to this group of users that we've been studying. So this has been a challenge in this project, since it is a very knowledge intensive based on tacit knowledge. We need a lot of our users to teach the AI system. Also, the context of knowledge workers' practices are very significant on here, on our scenarios, because we use real scenarios, but we use them in a general way. So sometimes the user was not really motivated or even motivated to engage with the assistant. If the assistant was partially correct or not completely wrong, he was not very engaged to make it right. So this is also something that we needed to consider it on next studies. So this is it. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for the talk. My name is Upal. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the next user studies that you're going to run, specifically when it comes to understanding the constructs that you would use to evaluate the effectiveness of this. Because I understand for the formative work, you went from relevant, not relevant, relevant, but. Mm-hmm. But understanding this, what kind of constructs when there are actual consequential decisions that are being made?
First of all, we need to review how we perform those studies. So we needed to get users associated with the context that they are interested or they have some knowledge about it. So they can really be engaged. We have this study made us rethink about our adoption strategy. So giving some more special attention to that teaching phase. So to make make experts know that what they teach the advisor is what they are going to use later. So if everybody teaches, so I can learn what someone else knows. So we needed to do this previous steps on our user collaboration.
Hi, I'm Kyungjun from University of Maryland, College Park. You mentioned that users need to teach the AI systems, right? I was just wondering how you think about the teaching system is going to be like. If you have thought, could you share that with us?
Yeah, we're still working on how how we're going to talk about that. We're still working on how we tell them that they are going to have some maybe initial overhead, because it is what they always tell us, that I do not want to waste my time teaching an intelligent system. But what we are doing right now is try to explain them what we can learn from what is the knowledge that is represented by books, papers, and so on, but what they can gain if we start to relate that to tacit knowledge that can only do with the teaching by people. But we did not still have idea how we are going to do the teaching as a research in progress.
I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about why the interpreters were so hesitant to share their works in progress, and maybe what their motivations were for keeping things private.
Because it's very similar to our research process, scientific work, because we have a hypothesis, but we are not really sure about it, so we want to have more evidence before we can, defend our case to others. So it's like you put a draft paper to someone far from you to see it. But I think they are more delicate than us, at least in this community, because we collaborate with others, but they need some assurance before they collaborate. Even with peers, closer peers, it is a very interesting behavior that they have. And even when we are talking about the advisor, they always ask, who's going to see it? Who can access this? Who can use it? So they are very delicate with that.
Okay, let's thank our speaker and all of our speakers in the session.